is just the warranty.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that after 8 years the battery is going to fail.
With hydrogen, you've got to get into distribution of hydrogen, a whole separate now, sort of infrastructure. Network.
Right.
So that's one challenge.
EVs tend to be rear-wheel drive. I mean, even our MG Comet is rear-wheel.
Yeah, Maruti really shies away from doing fun and, niche kind of products.
Mitsubishi, unfortunately, we've been robbed of that brand in India. It's a great brand. And I just wish they had come in here and, let's say, stuck around. We would have been driving some nice cars. Hello and welcome to Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. I'm Hormas Farabji.
And I'm Sergis Barreto. And today we have a very different podcast for you, breaking away from our norm, right, Hormas?
Absolutely. Today's podcast is all about you. It's about answering your questions, and there have been lots of them. We really have to thank you for the encouraging response. It's been absolutely overwhelming. And a lot of you have been wanting to know more and more about the nuances, about the intricacies of the auto industry, the products, the peoples, and why things can happen and why they can't. Sergis, you've got some of the questions.
Yes, I do.
Let's fire away.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Hormas, let's start with maybe some simple ones first and then get into a little more complex. Will Nissan bring the Infiniti to India?
Yeah, well, I think easy and a complex question. I think very difficult for Nissan to, look at a luxury brand right now. They're just focused on trying to kind of get their India operations back up to scale. They've got a huge plant. It's all about mass production. It's all about volume. I think getting a niche luxury brand is too much of a distraction right now. I think if the brand was stronger, more well-established, the way Hyundai is, which is bringing Genesis, makes a lot of logical sense, perhaps then. But Nissan is a long, long way away from being solid in this market. In fact, it's quite rickety right now, and they've announced a big investment to launch SUVs, but they are mid-size SUVs. So that's going to be their focus for the next couple of years. I don't think Infiniti is on the cards at all.
Right. And let's not forget, they did try another brand, Datsun. Didn't really make any success of it.
Absolutely. Though that again was a mass market brand. So again, challenges in launching that. Infiniti a lot easier, but again, you don't get it right.
Yeah. Singular brand is...
It's going to be quite challenging. You have to have dedicated networks. There's a lot of investment there as well. And I don't think at this stage, Nissan is got an appetite to invest beyond what it needs to just stay relevant in India.
True. All right. So next question. In fact, we've had a lot of questions on this one. Green hydrogen or hydrogen-powered cars.
So why don't you take that one?
Yeah. So, the first thing is to remember hydrogen-powered cars, which a lot of people mistake actually, is that there are two types.
Yeah, IC type.
Yeah, the IC, the engine where the hydrogen is used as the fuel, regular internal combustion. And the other one is a fuel cell vehicle where hydrogen actually creates electricity and then it's like a regular EV.
Like a regular.
So, yeah, there are benefits to hydrogen. We have seen a lot of cars. In fact, Toyota have put it out into the market as well. But
the fuel cell hydrogen.
The fuel cell hydrogen type. But really from wherever you look at and whoever you talk to, hydrogen cars will not really be mainstream, not in the near future, because there are a couple of challenges. One, when we talk of charging infrastructure, you must remember distribution of electricity is already there, right? I mean, with hydrogen, you've got to get into distribution of hydrogen, a whole separate now, sort of infrastructure. Network. Right. So that's one challenge.
And it's really expensive.
Exactly. Secondly, it isn't really well suited to passenger applications because you do lose a lot of space in terms of the hydrogen tanks and things like that. And from what everyone says is that it's better for smaller cars to be electric and for the larger vehicles, especially when you get to trucks and buses, to be hydrogen powered. So it's possible we will see hydrogen, but coming into the, larger vehicles. And that could be the future. Now, there were questions about green hydrogen, and that's also something interesting. It's basically just hydrogen produced from
renewable energy.
Exactly. Green electricity from electrolysis of water. Because hydrogen is also produced from methane. And that produces a lot of CO2, which is actually counterproductive. I mean, it's quite crazy. And that's what's called grey hydrogen. So grey hydrogen is when you essentially do not capture the CO2. And then there's another color, I think it's blue hydrogen, which is still produced from methane, but you capture and don't release the CO2.
Yeah, so hydrogen with a lot of colors. Hydrogen itself is colorless.
Exactly. True. Right. So that's all about hydrogen. We don't think they will be coming really soon to passenger car applications. If they do make it quickly, it would be for heavier vehicles. So that's on hydrogen. Hormuz, we've got another question on Ford. In fact, that podcast had a lot of people very excited about a potential return. And I think the questions, and I'll just sort of merge them, is what about vehicles like the Equator, the Territory, the EcoSport, Freestyle?
So I think clearly what's clear is that Ford, it doesn't make sense for them to start doing what they were doing before, which is get into the volume segment. That's where they couldn't hack it. Frankly, they don't even have a plan for it anymore. They don't have Sanand where these vehicles were made. The EcoSport also was made in Chennai. But I think their strategy is very clear. If they are coming to India, it'll be with the body-on-frame SUVs. Easier to produce. There's a market for that. There will be a market for Endeavour. They can manage with low volumes. They can have a decent margin on it. So there's a business case for it. It's all about making the economics work, because, they can't be making huge losses again. Interestingly, the Territory, which I think, I don't know, not many people know, but we've done this in our story about the whole Mahindra when they broke up. Before, there was a choice for Ford. They had two ways to go. Either they bring the Territory, which is a joint venture with JMC in China, which they have. Actually, it's a Chinese vehicle. So one option was to bring the Territory to India as part of that joint venture, or the other direction was to partner with Mahindra. Now we know which way they went and what happened. But so they had looked at the Territory seriously. But I think at that point they said, hey, look, let's partner with Mahindra. And of course, that didn't work out. And frankly, the way the geopolitical situation is, maybe even getting the Territory would not have been such a great idea. But I think a lot of people ask, a lot of these names are registered, they're patented. Doesn't mean they're going to launch them here. They just want to hang on to this name. I mean, like Everest, for example, I think they got it back after a long time. They didn't have it. So if they have a global name, whichever markets they are in or planning to be in, they just go and, block that name in for themselves.
True, right. So no chance of those vehicles, at least not in the near to even mid-term future.
I doubt. I mean, first we've got to wait for something like the Endeavour to come. We hope that comes and then think of the other ones. But it's unlikely they will. They will be going the EV way. They've talked about a low-cost EV, which we said about, and I think that's going to be their focus.
True. The next question, let's look at, Hormuz, is on the Jimny. That podcast also had a lot of people talking about the three-door Jimny. It is made in India. Why not just launch that alone, or maybe alongside the four-door as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of questions on that, and I think clearly, I don't think there was really a case for a three-door Jimny. But looking at the volumes of the five-door, maybe the three-door would have added about 50% of the volume. I think three-door was really small, very compact. Would have had it would have been the comment of SUVs, to be honest. It's very cute. It serves a purpose, but very niche, very limited, and really not as broad-based for mass appeal or mass or high volumes, which is what Maruti typically wants. They're in the volume business, and they didn't think they would get enough volume with the three-door.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, actually. In fact, I wrote a column or two about it. I mean, Maruti really shies away from doing fun and, niche kind of products. And unfortunately, the Gypsy fell in that formula, I guess, for India.
That's right.
But I like what you said. I mean, they could launch it right now and increase sales by 50% probably, looking at the volume.
Exactly.
Okay, so Hormuz, moving on now to EV batteries. A lot of queries on what happens to batteries after the 8 years. I mean, everyone says, 8-year warranty, but what happens to that after 8 years, right?
I think it's important to say that 8 years is just the warranty. Exactly. It doesn't mean that after 8 years, the battery is going to fail.
Exactly, absolutely.
The battery can go on for 10, 12 years, maybe. There will be a slight degradation, but it doesn't mean that the battery is going to, it's going to be perfectly functional. Exactly. May not be as, to max capacity, as efficient. I mean, just like your mobile phone, this is all lithium, same kind of principle. But I don't think it means that your battery is going to completely conk off.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you look at Tata Motors, they've been very clear. They said, look, after 8 years, what we're saying is it should give you 75 to 80% of the range when it was new. So technically, if you bought the long range, let's say, you probably end up with the medium range next on, But also to answer the queries as to what happens to batteries after they come out of a vehicle, they don't straight away go into waste. You can have a second life. And there's a whole program for second life of batteries. Not so well developed in India as yet, but they can now. Second life, what you would use them for is energy storage. So
Stationary application.
exactly, stationary applications, UPS, backups and things like that. And then after the second life, you will get into recycling. So
It's also still a big challenge.
which is a big challenge. In fact, recycling is the bigger challenge than second
right.
life probably. And you probably want to develop second life before getting to recycling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sell that.
Whole thing, you're cleaning up the air, but you might be polluting the earth.
Exactly. So yes, EV, batteries are a challenge, but after the vehicle, there is hope. There is a second life. Of course, there's prolonged life, as we were discussing, second life, and then recycling.
Right.
So really, that's what EV batteries are. And now coming to Horma's diesel, DPF. We've had a lot of, in fact, not just on the podcast, but I think you and I have also had a lot of queries and help for people struggling with the DPF, filters getting clogged with the new, regulations.
Yeah, that's right. I think with BS6, the diesel particulate filter came in, and obviously, it has to regeneration.
What's happening and what can be?
I think, you need to, it traps the particulates, and then the way you have to get rid of them is by regeneration. You literally have to burn them. So there's sometimes there's active regeneration where there's now, people actually heat the DPF to kind of, burn off the soot and particulates, or you have the passive regeneration, which is what the car does itself. And that clearly means you have to put the engine under load. So when the engine's under load, it gets hotter, and then with the exhaust heat reaches a certain temperature, that burns off the soot. But if you're driving in city, with just path throttle and light load, there's no regeneration, and that's when it starts clogging up.
Shorter distances too.
That's right, shorter distances, because you haven't really reached operating temperature. They're not wet. It's not very warm, and then that's when it becomes a problem. Obviously, there's indication that your DPF needs to be regenerated. I mean, the way to do it is to really drive at a steady speed, quite hard at a steady to get the load at a certain revs, so that kind of get the temperature and burns off the soot. So bit of a pain, but I think a lot of companies are looking at more, brands are looking at more active regeneration to kind of mitigate this problem.
True, and you do have in your owner's manual, in fact, a way on how to drive a cycle. So
That's
when
right.
the warning light comes on, every car will have a certain sort of parameter which they'll advise. So you can check that out in your owner's manual. You will have to drive a cycle now. It does sound, of course, maybe counterproductive because it's just simply burning, fuel.
That's right, yeah. But it's just for that moment when you get
Yes,
there. Exactly. So I think, BS6 has put all these challenges for diesel, but fact is that they're much cleaner right now.
Yeah.
And again, you've got the AdBlue tank as well. So you've got to constantly be putting, urea in it. So that also is another, let's say, operation you have to worry about.
True, exactly. Next question, Hormas, is the Renegade. And in fact, this again has been all through time. People keep asking us, why isn't Jeep putting the Renegade? Logically makes sense. It's the smallest in their lineup, could do very well in India. They've not brought that, but we've got some news which we recently broke, right?
Yeah, I think, we're not sure. And everyone wants a Renegade, but they all say that on social media. Then finally, when the vehicles come, whatever the price, no one buys it. We've seen this whole thing for the Punto Abarth and stuff like that. So it's, there has to be a market for it. And that market clearly is there if it's at the right price point. And I think what we broke the story on, there's a Creta rival coming, which is a Renegade-ish kind of vehicle, which is being done on the CQ platform. That was, earlier podcast which we had done.
The Citroen.
Citroen platform. So, not sure if it'll be called the Renegade. Maybe not, because Renegade, it has to be exactly that vehicle which is sold globally. But a Renegade type vehicle will come to India, and it'll be quite affordable. It'll be a Creta rival, two-wheel drive with petrol, 1.6 petrol, hopefully, and a 4x4 EV.
True. And we have a podcast on that as well, like you said. So there are details, you can check that out. The next question is on hybrids, and specifically Horma's plug-in hybrids. Why aren't there more of them in India, and would they make sense?
Well, I think firstly, why aren't there more hybrids in India? And I think the reason is quite clear. It's very, very expensive. You've got electric powertrain and an IC engine, carrying a cost of both. You've got two powertrains, no real tax benefit on it. So it's really quite expensive. And really the cost saving doesn't, the running cost doesn't offset or justify the high.
Got to run a lot.
Yeah, just too much. It just doesn't make sense. Now, plug-in hybrids are even more expensive.
You can now got the charging.
Yeah, and frankly, then again, you're tied to a plug, so you might as well just get an EV then, because it's generally more city-specific, and really the big thing about a hybrid is that it freed you from the plug, especially over here where home charging is still a big problem, and that's what people want the comfort of. So, and I think plugins we had the Volvo XC90, which we ran. It was quite interesting because it had a big enough battery, and we did 1 week office to back only on electricity. So it was quite interesting. So plug-in hybrids, if you can charge them, they offer EV running for short distances, which is great, and also give you that comfort going a long distance. But again, very expensive.
True.
And I think, it's just not viable here.
True. In fact, Porsche had it with the Cayenne as well.
That's right.
And now with the new one, they've decided not to have it because no one bought that, the plug-in hybrid,
Exactly.
I think they probably sold 1 or 2 units and that was it. So,
yeah.
But what was it? Interestingly, MG, and we did this news, and talking to Rajiv, he's Chaba, he said to me, look, it's like having 2 cars in one. Why would you not want a plug-in hybrid? And they seem to be very confident about this. Do you think it's a risky bet?
Well, I think, again, it depends on the cost, what they can bring it for. But I think, again, it makes sense if you can charge your car as easily as you should. So I don't think the charging, the convenience of charging is there right now. So I think that's going to be a limiting factor. In China and places, charging infra is so well developed or much, much better than what it is over here. So just the kind of ease with which you can plug in your plug-in hybrid, you could do it every day or every other day. So you get that full EV benefit. But over here, I'm not so sure. And people will not take that extra effort when they know that they're not going to get stuck. In an EV, you don't charge, you can't drive.
You have
to charge. In a plug-in hybrid, you don't.
True. What was the next question is on a brand which isn't really in India anymore, Mitsubishi. Why did they fail? Why are they not coming back? And what about brands like Mazda?
Well, I think Mitsubishi had a lot of promise, but I don't think they were focused on India. Mitsubishi had its own problems when they could have come. There were scandals, and then, they got taken over by, the whole Nissan alliance. I think, and then frankly, to make a crack in the Indian market for anyone, you need relevant products. Mitsubishi doesn't have them. They've got the high-end SUVs, but I think that's too small to really set up an operation in India. You need a certain amount of scale. Mazda really has no India-specific products. And because India is a very unique market, it's a market where you need to have grounds-up products, which are basically for the Indian market. I mean, Creta is a classic example of it. You don't really get it in, really all over
the world, yeah.
Yeah, but it's basically an Indian car. So I think both these brands, they have their own problems. They're not that big. They don't have that ambition. They've got other issues to sort out. And right now, today, when, resources are finite, everyone is going to be putting good money after good. They're not going to be putting good money after bad, which is coming into a market that is one of the most difficult in the world. You'll just be losing a ton of cash before you can even make a dent. So it's just logical that, I don't think you'll see any really, unless there's some EV play or whatever, but which is easy to get into, or some association with another company, a partnership or a collaboration, I don't see these brands growing.
And I think Horvas also, when they were here, they weren't really fully committed, and you probably have more info on this, but from what I know is that when they were tied up with HM, the partnership actually was a technology transfer.
Yeah, that's
right.
A license and a technology.
Yeah, they had to pay for each generation of, like, let's say, this Lancer.
Yeah.
Automatically mean that they could upgrade it, right?
That's right. Absolutely. They couldn't upgrade. And I think then when future regulations came, that would kill the products, because the volumes were too small to justify big investments, which neither HM had nor Mitsubishi wanted to commit. So I think that's what just killed all the models, because whether once you get into a regulation change, the investments are huge to kind of meet that. So that's what really kills a lot of brands and a lot of products as well. So I think that's what happened to Mitsubishi. A real shame, because, outstanding cars.
True.
I think that first-gen Pajero is just so iconic. It was just amazing.
Fun to drive.
Yeah, Lancer fun to drive. And I think in a way so much better than the Honda City it was. It was like a proper car. It didn't have the same performance, but you knew it was felt a segment bigger. And it was just an amazing car. The gearbox, the smoothness. It was it was so much better engineered than the Honda City was. So really Mitsubishi, unfortunately, we've been robbed of that brand in India. It's a great brand. And I just wish they had come in here and, let's say, stuck around. We would have been driving some nice cars.
True. Hormuz, now here's a fun question. Why don't car makers in India have rear-wheel drive cars? Why is there hesitation for this?
Well, I mean, I think, again, I think we all know that mass market cars is just front-wheel drive is much more practical. It's cheaper, it's safer, better packaging. I mean, this goes back to the original Mini, which really was the father of front-engine, front-wheel drive in a way that it kind of really revolutionized the way cars were being designed and made. I think it's a whole new topic going into the advantages of front-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive. So I think clearly for, front-wheel drive as a configuration has too many advantages over rear-wheel drive other than the fun element, though you do have the big sedans from German makers like BMW and Mercedes, which are rear-wheel drive only as well. But having said that, there's an interesting trend that's developing is that EVs tend to be rear-wheel drive. I mean, even our MG Comet is rear-wheel drive.
rear-wheel Comet.
And there's a good reason for that, because rear-wheel drives in a way solve a lot of headaches for EV manufacturers, for the simple reason that all the output from the battery, all the cabling, the output to the motor, the controllers is all from the back. And all the high tension cabling is at the back. There's a reason for that, is then they want to isolate or be able to seal off the front of the battery for crash. And you don't want high voltage stuff in the front. That's one key reason, which, people tend to move it back. It's less complex. Of course, with four-wheel drive, you've got to run a cable there. Then they have to kind of protect that. And,
But with two-wheel drive, it's preferred in the rear.
With two-wheel drive, it is generally preferred in the rear, unless it's an ICE conversion. Because then again, it's difficult. Then you have to change a lot of use the existing space, change a lot of the platform. It's not really feasible. And then, so you'll see all the ICE cars, ICE conversions are all front-wheel drive. Nexon, and XUV 400 as well. But you see the Born Electrics, the dedicated platform cars, they're all rear-wheel drive. I mean, Comet is one example. It's actually a skateboard, and they have rear-wheel drive for this reason. Also, rear-wheel drive is preferable in EVs because of the high torque. So, I mean, we knew what the XUV 400 was without that traction control. You were shrieking tires all the way till, God knows when. So, I think, the way then the rear sits down, it's all physics. The rear wheels can put down that torque much easier. So they have a rear-wheel drive for that. And so, but I think largely it's because of the ease of getting all the output, which is at the rear of the battery. Again, as I said, because, the front just got a plate over there. It is absolutely, then sealed off and there's a gap with the crash area. So that's the thing. So I think, I think there will be some fun rear-wheel drives coming. I mean, Ioniq 5, which we have, that's the two-wheel drive version is a rear-wheel drive. So I think can look forward to having some rear-wheel drive. And don't forget, the new Mahindras are going to be rear-wheel drive. The BEV range is going to be, that is rear-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. So I think, so you will be getting your rear-wheel drive cars, but they'll be electric.
And Hormuz, last question. Where can we buy the Autocar?
Well, I think, actually, sadly, it's not for sale. But I think, we are looking at having, giving these with some subscription offers in the future, just as giveaways or as part of the subscription deal. So watch out for that. Well, good reason to subscribe to the mag otherwise. So I think, but I'm glad people have been noticing this as well.
True. So, right, that's about it, Hormuz. Any more questions? Keep them coming, right?
Absolutely. Look forward to your questions. And again, thanks so much for your support. It's been overwhelming. We've got some great feedback from all of y'all. And don't forget, keep sending in your queries and don't miss our podcast 11 a.m. on Saturday. Best way to be reminded is subscribe so that you are notified when our podcast drops every week.